day of lab if you were working really fast. If not, then keep working. But what I did want to mention was if you decide to do the report, what you're going to need to include. So, it's not going to be a whole lot different from your a typical formal lab report, okay? But I would like for you to include, number one, I'd like to have it typed. Number two, I would like for you to include an introduction. So in the same way that anytime you write a paper for English, you know, you have to have a proper introduction, I would like for you to do the same thing here, because in scientific writing you should do that as well. In terms of the introduction, I would like for you to focus on the chalcones. You know, there's been a lot of research done into the chemistry and not only the chemistry but also the bioactivity of chalcones. So I would like for you to look up from some outside resources, and you'll have to do a little digging, but introduce the chalcone, the significance of the chalcone.
In general, or
just in general?
Oh.
Yeah. And what you'll find a lot of information. They've been studied for a long time. So just and it doesn't have to be a dissertation. Just write a paragraph or so, kind of introducing the chalcones as a family of organic molecules. That now, because you're doing outside, going to be researching some outside sources, you obviously want to have appropriate references as well. And I don't really care how you format this in terms of like English all the time. What is it? MLS? MLA, that's what it is. Whatever. It's been a long time since I've written an English paper. But use some approved format. Don't just make up your own. Okay? So whether it's MLA or whatever else there are, use a systematized, or whatever you call it. Use an approved one. I don't care which one, just an approved one. The other thing that you're going to want to have is the mechanism of both the reactions. These you don't need to type because that would be really tedious. So you can handwrite the mechanisms. You will need to include all of the other stuff that you would normally have in a formal lab report, like a pre-lab, like calculations, like the tables, you know, just the normal stuff that you would include in a lab report. And then finally, in your conclusion, it's really going to be just like a normal conclusion. What I would like to focus you on, however, is make sure you have a complete peak assignment. In the NMR. Now that's going to be easy to do with the chalcone, because there's only, well, for some of you there's just one type of proton. It's just aromatic vinylic. Others of you are going to have the aromatic vinylic and then something else, like a methyl or a methoxy. But doing that for the part A is going to be simple. For part B, it's going to be a bit more challenging, because the product of the Robinson annulation is going to be rather large and it's somewhat complex. So you might have to do a little work in order to do a complete peak assignment for the annulation product. Okay? But that is what I would like for you to have in your report if you choose to do it. Remember, the report is optional. Okay? If you don't do it, you're not going to be penalized. Your grade is just going to be determined by 40 points less than what's listed in the syllabus. Okay, so again, it's optional. And the way I would envision your logic is, if you're right on the cusp of a grade and you're trying to get that extra boost, maybe you do the project because it's going to be 40 additional points, and if you do well, then that's 40 extra points in the bag. But if you're in the middle of a grade, that 40 points is probably not going to affect you very much. And then maybe it's not worth your time. But it's up to you. This will be due if you decide to do it. Submit to Canvas by the final exam. Okay. So you will submit it like all the other lab reports in Canvas, and you'll just get it submitted prior to the start of your final. Okay. Any questions on that? Yeah.
Which parts are required to be typed?
I'm sorry, say again.
Which parts do you have to type?
The introduction, the pre-lab part, and then the conclusion. Really, the only thing you don't need to type are if you want to include reactions, like draw out the reaction. You don't have to type. Anything involving structures, you don't have to have typed. Anything involving structures, you can handwrite. But any of the text, I would like to have typed.
You want both the pre-labs?
Yeah. Any other questions on the report? Okay, if not, then you guys can get started and do what you need to do.